the therapist is not always ready to carry this relationship, and sometimes this may lead to hurting other people. It doesn't mean not knowing enough techniques or mindfulness exercises or proper questions. You can hurt another person by not being a person enough, so to say. And this requires some conscious directions in which, first of all, you recognize your own history, your own difficulties.
Welcome back to Act Root to Fruit. My name is Marcel Tassara, and I'm a psychologist working to unearth the roots of the contextual behavioral sciences so that the fruit that us clinicians deliver is as pristine as possible. I'm really excited to be bringing in some Eastern European wisdom today with Bartosz. Thanks for joining me, Bartosz.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, that's the voice of Bartosz Kleszcz. He's a psychotherapist in Poland who's done great work to expand ACT and CBS work in Poland and provide supervision and consultation in behavioral principles, and also has a website for folks in Poland to learn ACT. It's translated as "I'm learning ACT." Can you say it? How do you say it in Polish?
Uczę się ACT.
And organized the Lamech Conference, which is going to be coming up here this week. If you're listening to this as it's being published, May 16th and 23rd, 2021. It's a free online conference for low and middle income countries. That is, the presenters are all going to be presenting from low and middle income countries, and it's free for anybody to join. So I'll be putting some links in the show notes below. No registration required. Lots of stuff going on there. I'm impressed by your giving ways and generosity and inspired. So thanks for giving of your time and wisdom today. I'm excited for us to chop it up here, Bartosz.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, maybe we could start talking about the Lamech Conference coming up.
You know, the idea about the conference came from notice, like being quite attuned to economic discrepancies. Like everybody has their own story and their own things that they kind of like that they were challenged by. Um, make people more interested in a stuff that they can relate to. And this is what also brought me to ACT. Like when I read Stephen Hayes' papers in like 2008 or so, I really like this fiery vibe that was going on. And it was about
You
change.
say fiery?
Yeah, like very strong, energetic, high energy vibe. And this really resonated with me. And in ACBS, there are multiple people who are tuned to many different issues and discrepancies that we all experience. And for me, economic discrepancies are one of them. So around the world, there are brilliant people everywhere, but not everyone has similar access to training, to knowledge. There are, like for example, in Poland, there are language barriers. Many people do not know English well enough to read scientific papers or to publish. Like 2 years ago, I started organizing conferences online with friends, and this May, like a week from now, at the time of the recording, will be scaling up to an international level. So there are people invited from Cyprus, from Brazil, from Argentina, from Poland, of course. So I hope that this conference will be a cool, free of charge event that will be recorded and put online, that will facilitate getting access to cool new information about CBS.
Yeah.
So yeah.
From hearts outside of North America.
Yeah, outside of America, outside
Europe,
of
much of Europe.
Western Europe,
Hmm.
right? So there will be friends joining from also from Romania. So yeah, I I really would like to be a person who gives other people opportunities that they typically might not have. And I'm
Yeah,
really happy that some people agreed to join, and we'll be having like 2 Sundays of lectures and workshops um, on behaviors, basically.
very cool. Yeah, I'm very inspired by you all putting this together, and I mean, on top of it, making it free of charge is really speaks to the value of where this is coming from.
Well, when I was like as a student, when I was volunteering at the local hospice, a psychologist who was working there told me something very important. Like, if you want to volunteer, if you want to give, you also need to learn how to take. So for me, this is an
Hmm.
exciting opportunity just to organize stuff, and I really like it.
Yeah.
It's important for me to show other people that you do not really need much money, and the digitalization, like going online, that was facilitated by the pandemic.
Hmm.
It really creates, I think it can create new opportunities for people. You just need a few friends who have something to say. You need to organize a bit, and then you have a conference. It's really easy. It
Yeah.
doesn't take uh, basically the only money involved is that is for a paid Zoom account, so it's I hope that other people will see not only the conference, but how easy it is to spread information, to make it accessible, to create a community. It's not that hard. You just need to kind of tell people, I have an idea,
Hmm.
will you join me? And
Yeah.
some people say yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things I like as we were talking before I hit record about therapy and doing therapy online. It's just these a lot of avenues have opened up since the pandemic that I don't think that for me really crossed my mind as viable options. And so the conference is the 16th and the 23rd this year, 2021. I'll put links below for the Facebook group and for the conference website. And I wanted to ask you, it's will the presentations be in English, all of them, or
Yes, this is the lingua franca, so
okay,
but other people have already asked, oh, it will be Spanish or in English. What do you want? Maybe some other people will think about doing conferences in their own languages. This is what we've been doing in Poland. Like last month, we've already had like the fourth third wave conference, and the structure is basically the same as the Islamic conference. Lamech is low and middle income countries
yeah,
conference.
yeah,
So if somebody wants to copy that, please do. And this way you can really, how to say, you can find a way for to show your interests to people, to talk about what interests you, and to
yeah,
bring also other people into that. Because what I noticed, like organizing stuff throughout the years, that okay, there are many types of people, but there are two types of people in this context: people who are willing to organize something to bring people together,
hmm,
and people who will join if you tell them, okay, this is happening.
yeah,
But there were also some situations where, for example, I was organizing some online meetings, some like group supervisions, and then I fell sick for a month, and nobody picked this up. So those people who kind of organize stuff, they are important because they're kind of like a glue, and they
hmm,
organize this context. So if somebody is listening to that from a country um, that speaks their own language, I tell you, this is really easy. Just ask a few people, and many people will want to join.
okay, yeah. But speaking of languages, maybe the next Lamech conference will be in RFT. What do you think?
Well, there is something I want to address here because one of the things that people are like. So when I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking about people relationship to RFT, to relational frame theory,
Hmm.
but also to the availability of knowledge in general. Because, like, when I stare in this direction, I see like 20 books just lying there, and I read maybe a chapter from some of them, and I wake up next to them, and I'm like, oh, I'm not like, oh, I have this beautiful, wonderful source of information. No, like like there are two types of relationships. There is something that is for you,
Hmm.
and something that is like from you, demanding from you. And and a lot of time, people look at books and they think, oh no, I have to read that. And there's another book, and they, oh no, now I to be a good therapist, I need to know that.
Yeah.
For many people, learning about, I don't know, nine types of framing, all this lingo,
Mm.
we'll be talking about raw soon. There are like 23 variables to cover within that, and people are absolutely scared, and
Yeah.
their relationship with that knowledge is very aversive,
Uh-huh.
because they and I have never been taught like this. All this knowledge is not to demand from you to climb very, very high hill. It is for you, to help you, to aid your you can call it anyway, like your natural instincts,
Mm.
your willingness to connect with other person.
Yeah.
Like whenever I apply the behavior principle to my connection with people, I find that like my intimacy, my closeness, my interest peaks. It does not go down.
Mm.
And when I'm applying, for example, ROE, ROW, to my clinical world, it also happens. And I found, okay, those principles, they take my hand and they guide me to a place
Yeah.
in which I can understand behavior as it happens, like right in front of me, in a way that is richer, that is fuller, that is closer, um, than like like if I look at myself like from 5 or 10 years ago,
Hmm.
right now I can form much more closer relationship with people. And for many other people, just looking at those principles, they are scared because they are afraid, oh no, another thing that
Yeah.
will make me demand from myself to be a better therapist or to be a better specialist.
Hmm.
So my personal experience with getting deeper into behaviorism is that is a very helpful set of principles that are here for me to guide me in a way that will be more connected, deeper, full of understanding, right? And what I'm responding to here is that this joke, oh, maybe RFT lingo, mm, it doesn't have to be a foreign language, and it
Yeah.
can be a rich, interesting experience to get into that, to know that on a level that is more, that is deeper than just basic overview.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the guilt on those half dozen books looking at you over there is not too inspiring, though, is what I'm gathering.
Well, it's my behavior. It's like
Yeah.
I caught myself like thinking about like a good metaphor to describe that, and I thought those books are speaking to me, and they say, "Oh, you have to learn this," but no, it is me speaking to myself. This is my behavior. This is my
Hmm.
relationship with those
Hmm.
books. Only when I see that this is mine,
Yeah.
well, there is this common humanity and so on, and it's a popular issue, buying books and then not reading them. Why? Because each single person have their own history and their own like emotions attached to them that make it more difficult to, just be curious, be
Yeah.
interested, to explore and see what happens. It's difficult when you are in oppressive relationship with yourself.
Mm.
um, and it's very common, but also it's very personal.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, we could probably just spend a couple hours talking about uh, CBS literature, our relationship to CBS literature that we've purchased and or borrowed.
Yeah, let's spend those few hours in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, on this lingo thing, I do want to mention that one of my first interactions with you, maybe you probably don't remember this, but it was, I think, in Montreal or in Sevilla. You were there.
It was probably in Sevilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was like like, I don't know. We probably must have just talked for a few minutes, but I remember saying to you that I really enjoyed the Follies, and I hope to soon enjoy, like, understand the RFT jokes in the Follies. You know,
Mm,
and you give me a face like, oh, it's so easy. It's
mm.
simple.
Uh, I don't know. It's like my first act paper ever. It was actually an RFT, a paper written by Niklas Torneke and Carmen Luciano on verbal rules, and for me it was absolutely
Okay.
exciting,
Yeah.
and just to learn like the structure of what happens inside the human. This is what I like in behaviorism, and to really make this appetitive, you need to ask yourself, like, what do you like, what interests you, yeah, and maybe this will be like this kind of very specific and also sometimes very precise and useful language. Maybe this will be, but maybe you're looking for something more poetic. But when it comes to facilitating certain interactions between people, I
Mhm.
found this behaviorist lingo very, very useful. And this is one of the things that like shook the very foundations of me when I found this as a student. You can talk about love, you can talk about meaning, you can talk about your relationship with death using behavioral language. It's not only about rats and pigeons and
Mhm.
students. So yeah,
Yeah. And make sense of it all.
yes, yes, and like enhance the depth of your human experience. Yeah, it is possible. It's not the only way. It's a way, and it's my way currently.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay. So let's make a buffet, an RFT buffet.
yeah. What would you like?
Well, I'm always thinking about how this way of understanding humans can help us clinicians think functionally.
Yeah,
So I don't know if we want to start with some rowing, or there's somewhere else that you're inspired to lean on right now.
sure. Because like when it comes to the background of rowing, um, one of the things like historically speaking, one of the things to consider when we want to see ourselves where we are is that is the question of, is human behavior unique, or is it possible to apply it, mm, animal based theories to human behavior? And in a way, it is in many parts of science, and even in act, like the most popular way of analyzing function of behavior, so the role that it plays, is to apply those that the ABC analysis that stems like from the 30s, from the 40s, from the animal lab. And
Hmm.
when you look at act matrix, when you look like choice point, yeah, or just when you attend act workshops, you have this A, this B, and the C. And what is important to say here is that throughout the decades, many people um, have kind of approached the issue of analyzing function in a different way. So ABC is not the only way. It's
Mhm.
probably most popular where we are in CBS. You have like it's approached differently in REBT. It's approached differently in DBT as chain analysis. So there are many ways, and the question that you need to ask yourself is how can I um, kind of adhere to monistic, to like kind of strict behavior principles, and still to be able to talk about meaning, to
Mhm.
still to be able to understand the behavior of this verbal organism right in front of me that has his own world or her or their own world, their own history, that is bringing to the table something very uniquely theirs.
Mm.
Because that person right in front, like you, in a way, are sitting in a different world than me because we
Yeah.
have different histories, we have different relationships with whatever we like, whatever signals we process. So ROE is a way.
If I could just insert
Yeah.
there real quick, like one of the things I think about is how often now when someone says a word, even in my native tongue of English, or babbling like a toddler out there,
Mm.
um, um, oh, so okay, yeah, yeah. And one of the things I catch myself doing quite a bit is asking people what does that mean for them. You know, someone says I'm feeling so anxious, or I feel numb, I feel emptiness, whatever the word is. I think that one of the things that I've come to appreciate more, that the more that I've come in line with what you just said, the more that I want to really appreciate fully what someone means by that, what their experience of that is.
Like, if you don't do that, you will be only able to provide help for a person um, in a way that a doctor would. Like, there is a symptom, and symptom is either good or bad,
Hmm.
and things are getting either better or
Hmm.
worse. And if
Yeah.
things are getting more complicated, it's definitely not better. You need to keep things simple. It's very clearly delineated what better means, and there is it's a way to work with a person. But for me personally, like, if psychotherapy is to have its own specific identity, this question that you ask, what does it mean for you, it's absolutely fundamental. It's
Hmm.
I think it's one of the better questions you can ask when somebody presents with an issue. Like, how do you approach that? What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? What does it make you do? Any way that would allow you to have even if a glimpse into that other person's world.
Yeah.
And this serves two functions. The first function is simply to know the person, but there's also like this. Every good behavioral work is a developmental work for me. So this question, it gives an opportunity to create such space um, in which it is possible to say to other person, "You matter. Your own thoughts matter." Something that, if it happens in a good family, the person learns that he or she or them exist,
Yeah.
right? You are like being,
Hmm.
selfing is a behavior. So one of the functions, like, even when you are doing a diagnosis, even if you are sitting like with a completely new to you person, like at the session one, this question tells the person you exist, and one of the functions is to enhance that. So
Yeah.
being just interested in a person is already uh, a part of a therapy in itself. just just because of that.
Hmm.
It serves an important developmental role.
Yeah. And then they get to have closer contact with something they maybe haven't fully contacted.
Yes, yes. Like we get so stuck with getting rid of how we feel, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's the right thing to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, why not? But one of the like unhelpful consequences of not being in contact with what does it mean to me is that the complexity of my own understanding suffers as a result. I do not even have time just to sit down and process who I am as a person in this finite life.
Yeah.
And maybe, like I told you before about this article that people reassessing their relationship to work, to money, right, because of the pandemic. It made them just sit with themselves and their own family in a very isolated space. And some of those people um, treated this space as a space to think about yourself, about you.
Hmm.
And I believe that at least to an extent, it was because being so cut off and isolated facilitated their own contact with how they feel inside the space. And to some people, it ended very badly, and to some other, it was inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. And some it's ongoing. Right? It's still unfolding.
Yeah, yes. Like it's like one of the most surprising things about the pandemic is how um, different the consequences of it are for many people.
Hmm.
Many people just barely experience any consequences,
Yeah.
and many people just died of the disease of or by their own hands, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost I feel like at times I have a grasp, and other times I feel like I need another 10 years once it's ended to fully to really know and see things.
yeah, it's really hard to rest.
Hmm.
Is what I found. Is on one hand, I'm doing less work right now, and on the other, it's difficult to feel rested, to feel safe,
Hmm.
and to feel at ease, even
Yeah.
if I'm doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like one of my favorite research papers. Maybe you heard about that. Like during this research, they made people to sit. I don't know. I think it was 15 minutes or something, like very short time,
Hmm.
in a room without any other external stimuli.
Yeah.
And do you know this research?
It sounds. I mean, I know I'm thinking of one. I don't know if it's the one I'm thinking of though.
They were sitting there, and they had an option to uh, kind of like what is the word, this word in English, to shock themselves with electricity.
Mm.
And people started shocking themselves with electricity just to escape from feeling yourself and having
Mm.
your own thoughts.
Wow.
Like apparently if you shock
15 minutes.
yourself, yes, it was 15 minutes. So our inner space, and this is very important, by default, and when I say by default, is because our society is not tailored for us. It's like a big machine that is not it is not created for the purpose of human happiness, and it's
Hmm.
not updated according to newest research.
Yeah.
Um, Many people do not even know that this world is not made from themselves, and one of the consequences is that the internalized, I will say it very generally, that internalized like stress creates a very aversive space to live in, and this is a space with which you wake up
Hmm.
and spend the day with, and then you go to sleep with it. Yeah, you just cannot escape it. So
Yeah.
like those problems do not go away if you move to a different country. You travel with them.
Yeah.
And many people, as it turned out, prefer to even shock themselves, to
Hmm.
hurt themselves,
Hmm.
so that they do not have to feel and
Mm.
think. And then they come to a therapist, And the therapist asks, what does it mean to you? The therapist asks, look inside yourself. This is important. What is going on there?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
going on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can explain it, you can feel it, you can take a kind of savor rather than spit it out.
You know, you cannot tell people to savor it as an instruction,
No,
because for
no.
many people
Yeah.
this will be
Yeah.
a total opposite of
Yeah.
savoring,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But it is possible, and even it is possible with worst feelings
Yeah.
imaginable. And it doesn't say savoring does not mean it's how to say desired,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you can sit down with it and understand, this is a part of being me in this situation, as a
Mhm.
human, as a person living inside this body. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. I think about the difference between, let's say if someone says to you, "We need to talk,"
Mhm.
versus just talking.
Yeah.
It's it's what I find myself going. I think one of the advances I've made, and as a clinician, is to just let's go, let's go there, rather than we're gonna go there, because that just
Yeah.
ah, you know.
Yeah, like the face you made. I'm looking at you and I already think I've got like we need to talk. Yeah, it's awful. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. So,
Uh,
where should we go back to the rowing or the RFTing, or where?
we are actually already inside this topic,
Okay.
because what we are starting with is like very raw, like RAW type of thing. Like we are sharing our experiences, our original thoughts, and the part like what does it mean to you? This is the uh, R in ROE. This is the relating. This is the meaning part. So this model guides you by hand through like how to say it, like dimensions of an ongoing behavior.
Yeah.
So and it has like two parts. There is this relational parts, when you as a human, you are kind of as a, like the definition says, you are talking about or thinking or seeing about something in terms of other thing. Yeah. So for example, for me, it is meaningful here because I conceptualize me, my deictic self, in coordination with having a cool experience and learning more about behaviorism, and also having an interview recorded, right? So like currently as I'm speaking, our bodies are doing a multitude of behaviors, and you can take some of them that are important for us right now to notice, okay, your relating might be different from mine, but we are here, and those that relating transforms our experience.
Yeah.
So this is the very individual part that other people bring, and to know that, first of all, you need to ask the person, yeah, what does it mean for you? But also, you need to know the history of that person. You need to ask, like, what was your relationship with your parents, with your peers? Because what will people do? They will derive, like they will infer from those experiences who they are, whether they exist,
Mhm.
what is important, who is important. So one of the things that is very, at least in my experience, very underappreciated in acceptance and commitment therapy, is going fully through the another person history.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the first paper about ACT, like making sense of spirituality, from 1984 by Stephen Hayes,
Mhm.
like ACT is much more consciously built upon like the analysis of a spiritual experience that kind of how to say transforms your here and now. You are here, and then you have this enlightened, unique, transcended experience that
Mhm.
allows to look that allows you to look like past whatever is happening right now. There is very little interest in the history of the
Mm.
organism. There is very, very strong interest in
Yeah.
what happens here and now, currently, with whatever, um, like whatever piece of behavior is coming at me from my inside, from the
Do you think
outside.
part of that is kind of a stance away from psychoanalysis and that kind of thinking? That
Yeah, I do, and to some extent, probably it's right. But on the other, like for example, if you look at some newer psychodynamic treatments, like do you know intensive short-term ESTDP
no.
psychodynamic therapy?
Mm-mm.
It's very very similar to ACT, but it's psychodynamic, and like I get that. I think that their goal is very similar to ACT, but they are doing it in a different way.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like many
Yeah. No,
people
I
when
guess
they
what I'm
think
referring to is just.
psychoanalysis is
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
like what I want to say. Like many people who think psychoanalysis think Freud, and it's
Hmm.
I think it's very unfair.
Yeah. It's
Is as
evolved.
yeah, it's evolved. Is like many people who think behaviorism think I don't know, even Watson, right? And you know it is not fair to analyze that in terms of something that happens like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
um, yeah, we don't want to get stuck there. What we definitely don't want to do is offer people like those very easy solutions. Oh, it was your parent. Well, it was. And what we want to tell people is that it would be helpful to understand you better, so we know who you are, we know what you're responding to, and also I need to know that
Hmm.
because you have your own history and I have mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know um, the life situation of a person, you may you may know that that person had their reasons to be perfectionist. You can validate better. And simultaneously, of course, this works always happens here and now, but with a person that you need to understand. And this R part in ROE is for relating, is about the history that the person is bringing right into this place.
Yeah.
Without that, you will only be able to notice, okay, so you are numb. Let's try not to make you numb. Um, it's it's a very constricted place if you do not know how that other person is like what the other person is bringing to the table, what is the personal meaning attached to being numb,
Yeah.
to being here, to
Yeah.
talking with you, the person who is an authority or a man, or like the fifth or sixth therapist that I visited, right? So this is like one third of those functional analysis.
Mm-hmm.
If you integrate this relational part, then, for example, if you know that, say, the person had a history of some kind of maltreatment in relationships, you will be able to look for certain cues. For example, in such situation, that person, like in an interpersonal situation, that person might orient themselves, for example, to what you are doing, what you are saying. For example, they made, even if they do not want to do this, they may just want to sit silently when you are saying, oh, do mindfulness like once every evening, right? They will accept you because their history was that of maltreatment or aggression. And now you are a person who, like a bigger person than them, who
Mm-hmm.
is saying something. So this is the second part of this functional analysis. The person will be orienting to certain signals inside of them or or outside of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in this sphere, when those signals, for example, you as a therapist, you as an authority, you as not them, you as someone bigger than them or more important, um, this will transform in such a way that this will be either appetitive or aversive, so to react in a certain way. So for example, for a person who might have such history, it will be more appetitive to sit like this. Okay, okay, so once a day, not twice, yeah. Um, you will be noticing how they are bringing the history of their own relationships into the interaction with you.
Hmm.
And this is basically the whole model, like at least the main part.
Yeah.
What the aspects, dimensions of behavior that are ongoing is that the person will be relating something, orienting, or like attending to certain stimuli, to certain cues. And in this sphere, it will be appetitive, aversive, or neutral to
Hmm.
do something. And this is basically the crux of this analysis. And within that, when I'm using it, I find that this is really easy to find the function of
Okay.
behavior.
That could you distinguish are relating from orienting?
Right. So I will start with an analogy. Like, you know how, for example, let's say, like in a, let's call it like traditional functional analysis, like the ABC model.
Hmm.
Like, for example, staying silent. This can be both an antecedent, a behavior, and a consequence. No, your usage, like your analytic goals,
Hmm.
will tell you where do you want to put this part of like this like chunk of experience that when we speak about it, this is discrete, but in a way we create this discreteness, because like from the whole reality, we are just saying, okay, there's this part, but
Yeah.
it does not mean that this part really exists, that it's really separate. Yeah, like one thing could be, I don't know, it can be like a few keys, it can be a separate key, or it can be this red spot.
Yeah.
um, you bring your own language to the table in such a way that it has to be useful for you. And this is like the first thing. Like we aren't analyzing anything real, anything like, like I'm hitting the table. It's real because I can touch it. So so the question is like, what do you need? What do you want? And for example, let's say staying silent. Yeah,
Hmm.
let's analyze
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
behavior. Like
I like
you
this
have you
example.
have a person during a session, is a first session, and the person is like this, very passive. Like you're trying to start a conversation, it's not going anywhere, it's very short.
Yeah.
Let's say you have such person. Um, that person might be orienting. Let's say that person is orienting to the silence. This means that this silence has meaning for that person. It is appetitive in this moment for that person to focus on silence, and, for example, evoking might be looking at you, right? And
Does
that
it have
person
to be
is not.
appetitive?
No, but I'm just saying, like,
Okay.
let's say
I'm
it
just saying. I
is.
guess my question is just because they're doing it. I know there's this idea that just because they're doing it's appetitive. If they're doing it's appetitive.
Mhm. Uh, right. What I mean here is they are doing it, and on some level, it has to be appetitive since they are moving towards, like they are choosing this,
Okay.
right? But for example, what might be aversive is coming into closer contact with you, right?
Hmm.
Again, it needs to be useful. It needs to help you guide yourself through the behavior that is happening right now. And if you know about ROE, you might notice, okay, that person, what I'm seeing is noticing, and maybe that person said, okay, I'm noticing, I'm very silent right now, ha 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 ha. What you don't know, what is the meaning of this for that person? But you may
Hmm.
start also thinking about this. For example, um, if that person is staying, like is replying to me only with what seems to be very, how to say, compliant things, like if that person is saying, like, complimenting me, but they are not talking about themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You may say, okay, that person is orienting toward what you are saying and toward their own silence.
Yeah.
It is appetitive to give you like very very small chunks and really about you or what is preferred, but not about themselves. There is no real intimacy, and probably that person has a history, and we are moving to relating, in which staying like this was very useful. Yeah, and now we have a full row. It might be totally wrong, right? Because you just met that person, but you are kind of seeing what's happening,
Hmm.
trying to organize that, and what row reminds you of is that there is this personal, meaningful space that gives certain specific meanings to this behavior.
Yeah.
And the function will be vastly different for similarly behaving people with different histories, with different history of usage of silence or keeping distance in a conversation. Or maybe they are treating this psychotherapy as though it was like a visit as a doctor. Doctor is asking questions, they are replying
Hmm.
very shortly. This also might mean this.
Hmm.
Um, when I try to apply this type of behaving to the ABC model, like each row of A, B, and C get really fat. You know, there are like multiple stimuli. There are some behaviors. So, and there might be a few consequences.
Hmm.
So, this is one of the issues that I'm finding with ABC model is that if you want to this analysis to be really unique, it's it can grow to such proportion that it's becoming not that useful, especially in the moment.
Yes, and so I was going to ask if you could. You said in the example of the silence, the
Hmm?
you said there was a full row. I'm wondering if you could talk. I don't know if you talked about the E there, or did I
Mhm.
miss it?
Well, there is a difference between a person noticing their silence and the person staying silent as a behavior. These are
Okay.
like separate instances. And this is a made up example. Um, but I might I might give you some example of some like realer interaction, and maybe this will be and this might be better. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sounds
Okay,
good.
for example, a client a woman who I was working with, um, she like I think it's like we worked at that point for 1.5 years, I would say, and she's arriving at my office, and what she said is that, "Oh, Bartosz, you are looking really angry today." And I was like, "I'm not feeling angry. What is going on?" And I just noticed that. I gave her some remark, and we tried to focus on what is important for her, and she couldn't. She
Hmm.
tried, and uh, and ultimately she said, I really cannot focus today. It's like I'm really tense right now, and we came back to her noticing me.
Hmm.
And what I had there was that she was orienting to her tenseness, to tension, to her anxiety, and she was also orienting to my face. And she was also might be doing other things, but for the purpose of the analysis, like this was the signal in this interaction.
Yeah.
And what was appetitive for her, like she was moving toward, first of all, saying that she cannot continue the therapy at the moment. It's difficult for her. So yeah, therapy is working. She like this is a self-care behavior,
Hmm.
but also it was really aversive for her to continue talking about her. So what I had here was a bit of orienting and a bit of evoking. Yeah, she was moving away from focusing on whatever happened during the week. Uh, it was more appetitive to indicate to me something is going wrong.
Yeah.
And and Row guided me by hand to the question. Okay, I do not know what was going on inside her, but I tried to ask. oh, what are you feeling? What is happening inside of you? Um, so and she was very laconic, and it did not lead anywhere. So I started to think, if there is something historical happening here, um, if, for example, for her, my face as a man and seeing myself as probably angry was enough to shut her down, this means that her relating is that um, she would have a complex history of noticing and examining other people,
Hmm.
and very uncomplex history of being interested in herself. And this is what was actually we were working during the therapy.
Hmm.
So I asked her, if I were really angry, what would I think and feel about you? And the answer just started flowing. And people who have this history of violent relationships, of unstable parenting, um, they really grow with a lot of reinforcement coming from taking the perspective of the other. And of course, there is very little place to look at yourself from the perspective of I here now, I matter, other people matter. And we started, and this was kind of like, for me, this was a very like appreciative point, because I realized, thanks to knowing how people think and to knowing like how people like what histories lead to which behaviors, I
Hmm.
was able to get unstuck in this moment, because we started thinking about like, do you see, like I told her, you can talk about me, and when the situation is like makes you feel unsure and anxious, it is very difficult to focus on you. And
Hmm.
we had some space for intervention.
Hmm.
So this was a point in which I was very appreciative of learning ROE. And maybe there are many ways of analyzing this behavior, approaching that. But for me, like going on this like relating level and knowing different types of relations, especially the dating relations, it
Hmm.
really helped me to get unstuck in this moment, because I could respond precisely to her behavior
Yeah.
of me being more important than her. So
Hmm.
yeah, so this was a part when the functional part, orienting and evoking, was present,
Yeah.
and it helped me to get to the relating part of her.
Yeah, it's a lovely example, and I want to ask about the orienting part. If she wouldn't have been orienting to your face because, for historical reasons, she doesn't orient to other people.
Hmm.
She just
Right.
orients to herself,
Hmm.
um, and doesn't really isn't really keyed into what's happening around her.
Hmm. Um, well, she asked about my face, and she mentioned that also she's seeing something.
Yeah.
So at this point I had like a signal of orienting, but it might be much different. There might be a person who is coming, and I'm asking her like, how was your day? And she's like, what the fuck do you care? Yeah. So
Mm.
let,
Hmm.
and then and some clients are like this, some people are like this. We can just sit there, and like I can sit there with my own anxiety and see a person who is like a volcano, and
Hmm.
like the wheels start spinning. So yeah, so the question here is that we are seeing that person was responding, orienting to my interest in
Yes.
her. Yeah. um, but for example, to her, she might be relating that to, for example, being inauthentic, being someone totally different from her, or
Hmm.
even being dangerous. And it would be appetitive under such circumstance not to go into such like fake relationship where I pretend to care for money, for example,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So in a way, what is interesting here for me is that we already have the values of the, like if we analyze the person this way, we have already have kind, I would say, kind of values here, because what she's responding to, I would say, like one hypothesis of this made up client is that it is totally unacceptable for that very angry person to have a relationship where I'm faking anything and I'm pretending that I'm interested in her. So
Hmm.
this is wonderful basis of like further like inferring stuff. And also what you need is those 3 points RO and E,
Yeah.
right? Because I understand that the relating here is that he's a fake. But this is not the end. Being fake has a meaning. It is opposite to something, right?
Hmm.
So this is what I like. Like this ROE gets you in a really creative space where something important happens, and you really need to respond now, and you need to respond in an adequate way, or else the person will get more angry and the therapeutic relationship will
Hmm.
suffer.
Okay. And yeah, I appreciate that. And so I'm wondering about your history of learning and thinking functionally. Do you see this as something you've added onto the ABCs, or is it something that has overtaken the your use of thinking
Mm.
in that kind of 3 or 4 term contingency way?
Um, it's really difficult to unlearn something. And sometimes situations are so, I'm not saying like the first word in
Not
my head
according
was
to a recent
easy,
article in the New York
but
Times.
uh, um, sometimes situations are so straightforward
Hmm.
that, for example, a client needs some exposure, right? And it's very easy to conceptualize that in ABC because exposures models were based on animal research and so on.
Yeah.
And just you do not need that, and you can be a good enough therapist using ABC. And sometimes I use that because this is what comes to me naturally. Simultaneously, what I found is that when it comes to people who have suffered most, who are most difficult to handle in a relationship, who are kind
Hmm.
of like building themselves through their trauma, through the history of neglect or abuse, and so on, I found that being able to respond in a much, mm, how to say, uh, in a much less um, like in those Ford factories, you have those conveyor belts, and there is some mass production going on,
Hmm.
and you can make therapy like this. But for people who are you are working with within a therapeutic relationship, I found it's very very useful to analyze behavior um, in a more precise way. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to use ROE as often as possible, and also I'm still learning. And sometimes ABC is also useful for me,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
I'm happy that I have access to both.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate that. That's helpful. Very helpful. All of that. As far as I know, I mean, I think the first place that I encountered the row approaches was in the chapter that Nicholas Turnicke wrote with Yvonne Barnes Holmes and someone else in the Wiley Handbook of Contextual Behavioral Sciences. Is that where
All
you would
right.
send people to go learn more about this, or
There is a much newer chapter. The book is called, I think, Innovations in Act. It's from last year,
with well, Michael
and
Tuig,
there's,
I think, wrote this.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think the chapter 3 or so is about ROE.
Okay.
And I think this is the newest material because really, um, if you are not getting supervision from Yvonne Burns Holmes or are participating in workshops, you will not learn that actually. Like this is a difficult thing. I heard that book is in the way on the
Hmm.
way. I think it might arrived later in this year or at the
Yeah.
beginning of the next one, but currently it's like information about that and ways in which you can learn that are difficult
Hmm.
to come by.
I think that part of what you're getting at is this, and what I'm hearing is so much of getting past the processes of ACT means that we're engaging them in different ways, and
Mhm.
and that takes a lot of work and finances too, to get
Yeah.
consultation, to get support, and to have a, free up time, to really digest and think about them, in different ways. And I interviewed Kirk recently, and he was talking about how ineffective workshops are because you don't get to
Mhm.
work on your skills and get feedback on your skills like you would in a consultation type environment or supervision, or even in a course, an ongoing course. So
Mhm.
it's been a while since I've mentioned this, but I want to throw out there. I think a really viable way to get deeper into this work is to get together with some friends or colleagues and pool your resources to hire a consultant, because then you get to do things with other people and practice and get feedback in a small group setting in an ongoing way.
Definitely, it's like we are coming back here to what we've been talking about at the beginning of our talk. Um, you need to think in a way that will give some behavioral results, that will organize stuff and help people get together.
Hmm.
Because if like you are having some thoughts, like you in general as people, if a person has having some thoughts, oh, it would be nice to have this, but is not doing anything with
Hmm.
that, nothing changes.
Yeah.
And if you get some people together, it is much easier to achieve very concrete
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and take I mean, and that's something I think that I will add to the list of things that are I'm active in now that I wasn't prior to the pandemic, and that's doing group consultation. I have a
Mhm.
consultation group, and we have hired different consultants along the way. And I guess I don't know, I wasn't in my mind to think about before, and
Mhm.
it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and I don't live in a Reno or some other hotbed of CBS, so it's what's available to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
definitely.
yeah, yeah,
I
and you
agree.
you you do consultation, yeah? You provide
Yes,
consultation,
yes, I do. Because you discern between consultation and supervision in the US.
yeah.
Okay, in
Mhm.
Poland there is no legal
Okay,
discernment,
yeah,
so I call it supervision, but
yeah,
it function as consultation
yeah.
when we use the American term.
Okay, okay, yeah. And what do
And
you guarantee?
it's
You
like,
guarantee mastery in 3 sessions, right? Is that what I saw?
do I, do I? uh, um, because like many people struggle with feeling of like being inadequate, and I started doing supervision because one person kind of like made me. She told me, I will pay you for 5 sessions of supervisions, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. No,
Mhm.
you will give me supervision, and this is how I started doing
Okay.
supervision, and it's a great experience. I'm learning, I'm teaching.
Yeah.
It's so easy to analyze behavior without just experiencing all those difficulties that those therapies are
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah.
So no, I'm just joking here, but supervision is a great experience and has been great experience for me. Uh, I love to teach people those principles because then they come back to their clients and they are more attuned, first of all, to those like very small building blocks of behaviors, those like duration framing types and so on. And the other thing is they become attuned to people developmentally, and they see a person who looks outside as a person, but inside is, and this is a word we are not using in ACT, but I would say they are very broken, undeveloped human being that was never told that they exist. They were never treated as though they existed. So they never learned that their own um, inner world matters. And if you notice that, if you know the developmental history and you know your like behavioral rules attached to that, then you can create consciously start creating a space in which you can have a normal conversation that does not look like you are doing something on that person, but over time you see that person grow because they have somebody who cares for them, who asks for them, who is relentless at not trying to be an authority who knows better. And this makes people think, this makes people feel, this makes people derive that they exist and that they matter, and that they have their own life in which they can really experience consequences of their own behavior. And there is no manual for being a human, but there is a way to help to build the human psychologically. And this is why I appreciate behaviorism, because I don't know how it was 20 or 40 years ago, but now it's possible to be a very attuned, very mindful human being using this way of thinking. I just want to say to people it's possible.
I really appreciate what you just said as a stance, and it's been really helpful for me to internalize that, you know, in my own to my own self, and I think has allowed me to be more effective in how I use these tools with other people.
What you are speaking about right now is your own personal development as a
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I absolutely agree. Is that because there is, at least in Poland, especially in CBT circles, where the help is protocolized, is that this part of who the therapist is really minimalized,
Mm-hmm.
because to be effective, you need to provide a similar protocol to similarly grouped types of patients, and and I can see that you can minimalize the influence of a therapist this way.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I wouldn't be able to work like this, but also not working like this, but more responding to the person, like, how to say that? When I work with a person without the protocol, but only using principles, it is also more demanding in terms of being attuned to the right experience, just sifting through the noise that is happening. And I know throughout the years that many times I failed as a therapist because I was attuned to the wrong thing. I was responding to my own behavior, my own history, like me as an aquarium that holds my feelings and thoughts. It was too small.
Mm.
Um, I needed times and different therapies to help me grow as a human being and other developmental experiences. So yeah, it's very fascinating, but simultaneously, um, it must be really difficult for our clients because they do not know who they are sitting with, and the therapist is not always ready to carry this relationship, and sometimes this may lead to hurting other people.
Mm.
Not and hurting means not hurting means how to call it. Doesn't mean not knowing enough techniques or mindfulness exercises or proper questions. You can hurt another person by not being a person enough, so to say. And this requires some conscious directions in which, first of all, you recognize your own history, your
Mm-hmm.
own difficulties. When I supervise or consult other therapists, I notice like they are stuck with different types of clients that I am stuck with. Yeah, other types of people like trigger their insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, we have some common humanity. We are able to feel all those emotions and so on. But on the other hand, you need to really get personal with yourself to notice this is what I bring to the table. Those types of people are difficult for me because without that, you will be working in a very, very general way, like 40 minutes of mindfulness every day in hopes of this will work. And it will work to an extent,
Yeah.
but you will be working with yourself on a very general level, not on the level of you as a human being who might have difficulties on this level, right? So, and I think that this is not stressed in ACT enough, because ACT or FAB are really very into this coordination with other person. Like we are on the same boat,
Mm-hmm.
and in FAB you create a lot of intimacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also we are not we are not here as human beings. We are here as people who have difficulties or some specific thoughts that not everyone have. Not everyone had, I don't know, abuse in their early life, or were victims of rapes, or had psychotic episodes, or cut themselves and so on. We are similar, and simultaneously we are different people. If we are able to see that, and ROE is all about seeing what's common but also what is different, then it's easier to be like this specialist from this popular story. I think that you might have heard that there was some guy who was um, hired to repair some very very expensive machinery, and he arrived. He looked at the machinery. He just turned some screws and asked for $1,000. And the boss was angry, and it was 5 minutes. What I am paying for? So like $1 was for turning the screw, and 999 were to knowing where to turn them.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's like this. If you respond to yourself knowing that this is your own behavior, you can be much more attuned
Mm.
to where you have your own shortcomings, but also you can be much more attuned how you are different to other people, what are your strong sides. You need some deictic distinction to be able to be like for yourself
Yeah.
to take full shape.
Yeah. Yeah. I am thinking about how important that is for us as therapists who tend to orient more to other than ourselves. I think in general,
Mm.
we're drawn to this. If we were to pool everyone together, we'd find that that's the case. And what you're saying is an important learning point. I'm hearing.
It was important for me
Yeah.
to be able to respond to my own behavior, um, saying to myself, this is mine.
Yeah.
This is me thinking, this is me behaving.
Yeah.
This is not typical or normal. Yeah. And I'm not saying that in an oppressive way.
Yeah.
I'm saying that as noticing it's me, it is
Yeah.
what I am bringing to the
And
table.
honoring that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And now I know if I want to work on something, where need I where I have my homework in front of me.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's key. It's for me as well. It's really key for me to be um, taking care of this vessel so
Mm.
that
Yeah.
I can kind of not be in the way, so to speak, of helping
Mm.
others.
Yeah. I really like this take, like taking care of this vessel. Like we are living inside this body,
Hmm.
and sometimes this body has different goals than we have. For example, if we were hurt, the goal of our body will become to increase safety,
Hmm.
yeah, and to alarm us when the safety is getting lower, or even to work as good, so that we never need to even feel anxiety,
Yeah.
because we are so cut off from certain ways of experiencing our lives. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
This is one level, and also this way we can like infer from that, oh, in front of me there is a person who is thinking, feeling totally differently from me in this very situation.
Hmm.
It is very humanizing to see a other person also as opposite from you,
Yeah.
not only unitary to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is. I'm very stimulated by sitting with you, Bartosz, and and I'm drawn to say that we need to do this again, and and then also maybe discuss some other topics, and maybe we can cover that next time.
Yeah, I'm really happy how our discussion has flown, and we haven't even covered like half of the topics that we are agreed to, and
All right. Well, thanks for walking with me through this part of the forest.
thank you for inviting me to the forest.
But I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me. But I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me. But I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me.